Here with
And
my
I'm Joe
friend
Drilling.
Joe Drilling. How's it going, Joe?
It's going pretty all right. It's going pretty all right.
Um,
Uh,
Tonight we're gonna start a new video series, new stream series where I play some old Genesis games. Um, Sometimes I will select something at random. Sometimes you will select something that is a classic or at least interesting, um, because you've played a lot of Genesis games and I
yeah,
haven't. Basically,
that's true. I have.
right?
I had a Genesis as a
Yeah,
kid,
I
and
didn't.
and you did not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had an uncle that had a Genesis. I played Sonic 1 and Sonic 2 and Batman Returns on his Genesis a couple times when I was babysitting for him. But
Huh.
that's pretty much the extent of my Genesis playing back in the day. And then when we got a little bit farther on, I played some. I played through Shining Force 2 on an emulator because I was way into tactical RPGs for a little minute, and that's a real good one of those.
Hmm.
I played some Fantasy Star 4 around that same time, like messing around with, like trying to increase my breadth of knowledge of Japanese RPGs. Fantasy Star being probably the biggest JRPG series that never made an appearance on the Super Nintendo.
Um. Yeah. I mean, probably. It sort of died off after that, though, right? Like there was Fantasy Star One on the Master System, two, three, and
Right.
four on the Genesis, and then there was Fantasy Star Online on the Dreamcast and the GameCube, which not that many people played, but it has like a seriously devoted fan base. And then there were some like weird kind of text adventures on the Game Gear, I guess.
Yeah, Fantasy
Um,
Star Online on Dreamcast,
yeah,
but
these weird Fantasy Star spin-offs. But yeah,
because there's like
so
Ease, there like Ease is a big series, but there actually was an Ease game on Super Nintendo that I
there
played.
was Ease
Um,
3
yeah,
Wonders from Ease.
yeah, that was a weird one though. That was not. It was like a side-scrolling action
It's
kind of a thing. It
yeah.
was a little different than the traditional Ease games. But anyway, um,
They've now
that's pretty much
remade it
it.
though as like a more traditional
Yeah,
Ease title.
but anyway, like so that pretty much encompasses the breadth of my Sega Genesis game playing. And obviously, you and I played through Streets of Rage 2 at PAX a few years ago.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
game's
Frank
still great.
Cifaldi came over and turned the TV up all the way.
That game has great music.
Whoa.
That game has a
It
fucking
does.
amazing soundtrack, and the Streets of Rage remake package that came out on PC a few years ago is also really fantastic. Why is this not loading? What's going on here?
I don't know.
Anyway, tonight you are picking. This is and you have selected for me to try out Rocket Knight Adventures,
Hmm.
which is a kind of a sleeper classic, I guess, by Konami. That, according to this title screen, came out in 1993.
Yeah. Yeah. Rocket Knight Adventures, you play as a possum named Sparkster
Mm-hmm.
who fights a race of evil pigs. Um, yeah. Yeah. It's this sort of weird steampunk cartoon, vibe. It's actually this is sort of from the era of mascots with attitude, but actually Sparkster doesn't have that much of an attitude. Um, especially if you look at the box art, he's pretty cute.
Yeah, I
He's
mean, he's
not.
got look in this stage one screen. He's got a little bit of a frown going on, but his
Yeah, a little
idle
bit.
animation, he's smiling, he's happy, he's marching, he's fucking ready to go, man. He's gonna go beat up some pigs. Also,
Yeah,
there is
he's
a
not
fucking
angrily. Yeah,
no,
he's not angrily tapping his foot and looking
no.
at you like, "What the fuck is wrong with
He's
you?"
like, come on, man, let's go. I got stuff to do, but it's cool, you know. Like, if you got to get up and go to the bathroom. Oh, he took his goggles off and said, "Let's go." Uh, but
He's
it was
also
like thumbs up,
surprisingly
let's go, let's
chill.
go.
Yeah, he's also surprisingly chill considering there's a giant fucking spider tearing down a castle
Yeah,
behind him.
I was gonna mention that. So, uh, I've never played this game, and then there was a sequel to this game called Sparkster Rocket Knight Adventures 2, correct?
So there were kind of two well, there were kind of three sequels. There was Sparkster, but there's Sparkster for the Super NES and Sparkster for the Genesis, and
Those are different games, correct?
They're totally different. They're completely different
Okay.
games with the same.
And this
names.
is different than
someone should do a video on that sometime.
Yeah, this is different than the Super Nintendo Sparkster. Like they're all four of the Rocket Knight games, the 2 Genesis ones, the Super Nintendo one, and the PC, Xbox 360, PS3 polygonal one that came out in 2010. They're all like in the same world, I guess, but they're not like, none of them are remakes or.
Right. Correct.
They're all individual.
I didn't play very much of the Rocket Knight for the newish one.
I'm pretty sure that is its own thing. In fact, at the very beginning of that game, there's a cutscene where our good buddy Sparkster the Possum is like chilling in his front yard. And the evil wolves show back up, and he has to like go and put the armor on. He has like his he's the best coming out of retirement kind of moment at the beginning of that game.
Yeah, the best ex Rocket Knight.
I just died. I'm too busy talking to actually play this well. So what am I looking at control wise here? Am I utilizing my full? So I can jump, I can hit with my sword, I can charge up and dash.
And you get the charge. The charge is important. That's pretty much it. The charge is important because you need to master the charge in the later stages to traverse the world effectively.
Okay.
You sort of notice that you kind of bounce off of things at like a 45-degree angle when you charge into them. So that becomes really important later on in terms of stage traversal stuff. I feel like we should probably address the chat here a little bit. We do have some folks watching along with us. So Morbid Coffee says Sparkster is sassy.
All right, I'll buy that. He's a sassy possum.
Yeah, and the Mute Key says, he's. I'm sorry, actually, I don't want to assume the gender of the Mute Key because I'm not sure. So they say.
I've been working real hard to train myself into the singular they, but it's hard, man, because like. At least where I went to school, like they kind of hammered into you that they is plural and the other pronouns are singular.
Okay, he says he's a guy, so now we don't have to worry about it.
It's cool, whatever.
He says Sparkster Genesis is kind of boring. I don't know that I'd go that far. I think the Super Nintendo version is probably a little better, but I also think that this game is the best of the series. They kind of got it right the first time. And he says hitting things directly with your sword does more damage than the little projectile, the little crescent boomerang thing.
That's good to know.
Keep that in mind. I should have mentioned that. Also, when you're hitting stuff with the sword, anything taking damage doesn't hurt you, he says. So he's a bit more of an aficionado of this game than I am. But this is another one of those games that this is another one of those finds that like I'm so bad, and I sort of go on about this both here and on Twitter and stuff. But like, this is one of those games that I bought fairly cheap a couple years ago and has just gone ridiculously up in price. Like, I think I bought this game at the Midwest Gaming Classic maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and it's box manual, all that stuff. I think even the poster is in there. And I got it for like $10, and now it's like $100. It's just so ridiculous. And like, I don't say that as like that's not like a brag. Like I'm grossed out by how expensive a lot of these games are. Like
way overpriced these days.
And I don't have any plans to sell it. You know.
It's just more a commentary on the price of nostalgia. Is this game? I did not look this up, and I will in the future. Is this game available on any of the virtual console stuff?
That's a good question, actually.
If you have a second,
I'm checking. Yeah. Also, the fun fact: the sequel, the later one, the PS3, 360, etc.
Polygonal one. I believe that's just called Rocket Knight.
It's just called Rocket Knight.
Tagline.
Yeah, but it's confusing if you know. No, this appears to still be exclusive to.
Oh shit! This fucking water effect, dude. That's Sega Genesis is fucking. It also really hurts my eyes.
The dithering.
Yeah, holy crap.
So so it is not. It looks like it's not on Virtual Console. Yeah. Mute Key also says he got a loose cart a little less than a decade ago after a beautiful emulation binge. He said it was like $5 to $10 at the time. But yeah, it's False Logic says he's tripping balls looking at this waterfall.
Yeah, this water effect is nuts, dude. Well, also the bridge I was standing on is gone now, so there's nothing to center me at all. It's just ugh.
So, but the remake or the sequel or whatever, Rocket Knight, I feel like that's so confusing because Rocket Knight and Rocket Knight Adventures. But Rocket Knight is that so it's still at the top of our site is our old tagline of $15 worth of content every week, which is. But that game was the reason. That game was the reason for it.
Yeah.
Because we used to make jokes about.
Well, we all kind of met and used to hang out at a forum called Talking Time, and the creator of this game, or the producer, I think he was the producer for this.
He was the producer
director,
for
this and Silent Hill Shattered Memories. Used to hang out there too, and there was some arguments over whether or not that game had $15 worth of content because it came out in 2010, and sort of standard price for downloadable games at that time was $10.
Right, and there was a debate about if that, or then there was like a different game that there was arguments of like this, and it turned into like does this have $15 worth of content, and we latched onto that actually really hard.
Because the idea that there is a certain price to like our ratio is patently ridiculous. I think that's something that we all kind of agree on.
Yeah.
But I did buy that game, and that game was kind of not that great. I mean, it was totally fine, but it also so it came out in 2010, which we mentioned, which was 2 years after Braid, and it was also I wrote this down. So it was the same year that Limbo, Super Meat Boy, and came out, and that's just a killer crop of 2D platformer games that is really, really difficult for kind of a middle of the road remake or reboot to sort of compete with. Like those games they do things that platformers couldn't or didn't do back in the day, and that Rocket Knight reboot thing just felt like kind of a rehash, especially compared to those. And I'm flying. Can I do like a boost thing when I'm flying, or?
No, you're like maxed out on your jetpack the whole time when you're flying. Let's see here. Morbid Coffee says he gets the same dizzy feeling from Bubble Man stage.
Yeah, fair enough. I think this was a little more intense for me than Bubble Man stage.
Yeah, it was a little more.
That's the difference between 16-bit and 8-bit, you know.
Yeah. Level 54 Space Monkey says, God, I need a copy of this now. Not played it for years. Seems about £30 for a box copy on eBay these days. I don't know what that translates to in dollars this moment, but
what?
That actually is cheaper than I thought. I thought it was way more expensive than that, but maybe PAL copies are a lot of times different selling prices than US copies.
I gotta say, I really, really like the animation that Sparkster makes as he's falling.
Yeah.
It's really good. I also want to see, I'm gonna hang upside down for a second and see if there's any kind of dope idle animation for that. He has kind of like this, like, freaked out, all the blood is rushing to my head thing. And he's also holding his goggles to keep them from falling off, which is pretty good.
Yeah. Mute Key says, I wonder what Nobuya Nakazato is up to these days. He's the one who's responsible for this game, and I think Contra Hardcore, and I think he was on some level responsible for Castlevania Bloodlines, but maybe not as directly.
Yeah, I think he did like some of the Contra stuff, right?
Yeah, he did Contra Shattered Soldier as well, I know, which was like sort of and it looks like Level 54 Space Monkey says, looks like he was a producer on Contra Rebirth as well and did some management stuff on Metal Gear Solid 5, so it looks like he's still at Konami.
Who? What? What's this weird?
He's building
Konami,
pachinko machines.
A company that used to make video games.
Yep. False Logic says you better start save scumming before you run out of continues.
So we're gonna make this a half an hour long show. I'm not gonna go super long with these. So when we get to about the 15 to 20 minute mark, I will I found a code for level select,
Level
so
skipping, yeah.
I'll skip around.
You should
and
try
take
to
a look at
skip
some of
to
other
the.
ones.
We should see if we can skip to the part where you're in the giant robot fighting Axel here.
Also,
that's-
if you charge up and then let the button go, you can do like a spin kind of move in place.
Yeah.
So yeah, the controls in this are actually quite a bit different than the Super Nintendo one. I have played not all of that, but I've played like a couple of hours of it, and like that game, you can do that spin, that like stay in place and spin move is tied to a separate button, and you can also use that to kind of like goose your jumps when you jump dash.
Yeah.
So like if you jump dash up in this game, you just go up and then come right back down. But in that game, you can go up and then use the thing to sort of like move yourself left or right to land on platforms and stuff.
Yeah. Morbid Coffee wants to know when Sparkster Pachinko is happening.
Probably never, given that the reboot game only sold like 10,000 copies or 20,000 copies or something like that. I don't think that game did super well.
Yeah, Mute Key says he also adores how delightful the animations for Sparkster are.
Yeah, this game looks. I mean, this is like mid-era Genesis, right? So, like, they pretty much figured it out.
89. They came out in 89. It was discontinued in like 97. So yeah, this is almost dead smack in the middle. In 93.
It's nice and clean. Not a
level
lot of
54.
foreground. Doesn't break a lot of the rules for platformers or anything, which is nice.
And the Genesis just was so the processor was clocked so fast that there's so many objects on screen and so much, there's not a lot of slowdown.
This moves quite a bit faster than the Super Nintendo one, or the 360 and the PC one, or the I'll say the polygonal one. Also, like fuck the term 2.5D. I think I've expressed that opinion on our podcast and stuff.
I don't know that there's a better way to
It's just a
simply
2D
say what those
platformer
games are.
that happens to be made out of polygons instead of sprites. There's really no need to distinguish between the two. Like to me,
You're talking about a visual style.
To me, 2.5D should be like reserved for games like Crash Bandicoot, where there's like it's not 3D in the way that Super Mario 64 is 3D. But there is like some element of Z-axis traversal going on, whereas like 2.5D games are just 2D platformers for the most part. I don't like there's no half-dimensional aspect to it. Anyway.
Right. So Space Monkey says if Nakazato is still at Konami, he's probably the janitor. And Mute Key said he thinks that the level select only works on the Japanese version of this game, not the US version. So you might have to switch ROMs if you're going to use that. But I've never tried to use it in the American version, so I honestly don't.
Fuck, man, this fire thing is fucking my world.
False Logic asked if I already did a same name, different game on this, and I didn't because this game actually doesn't share a name with any other game. They're
confusingly
Sparkster.
titled, but they're not all the same.
They're all except Sparkster for the sequel for the Genesis and the Super NES. I do have both. I have a Super Famicom copy of Sparkster because it's way cheaper than the US copy, and I have the Genesis version. So I plan on getting to that eventually, but I have not yet done that. So.
Pattern to that thing, or?
Coffee says that he'll forever defend the new Guilty Gear got 2.5D right.
I've never played it, so I can't comment, but sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think I've played the most recent Guilty Gear, so
man.
I don't know. The thing about these games is I don't know, man. A lot of 16-bit and Super Nintendo, Genesis, TurboGrafx, and like Neo Geo, and then like into the 2D stuff that you do see on the PlayStation and the Saturn is like really some of just the most gorgeous shit, as far as straight up 2D art style. And I feel like there's such a craft to it at that time that even games that look gorgeous now, games like Mark of the Ninja or like Batman Brave and the Bold on the Wii looks really good, but like it's something about it is not quite the same in a lot of cases. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to explain, and maybe it's just like nostalgia tricking me or something, but I feel like they all will kind of look like Cartoon Network shows from like the late 90s. A lot of the, you know what I mean?
Have you seen you probably saw a little bit of it during Extra Life, but Owlboy seems to
Yeah,
be pretty
Owlboy.
special. But that also took
It also took 8
years to
years.
make. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Which I think is like that's the difference. Like these games all have larger team, even if they're not in development. A lot of times, as long as those indie games are, they have much larger teams of artists working. Oh, I should be using my charge, I guess, because it makes me invincible to the fire.
Right.
That's what I was fucking up. But yeah, it's just like there's just more people, I think, and that it has a lot to do with it. That's the reason why a lot of games have gone that like polygonal 2D route, because it's much cheaper to create those assets in 3D and then like use copy and paste them that way than it is to make sprite artwork. But
yeah. Shots fired. Morbid Coffee says all 10 years of Owlboy development went towards the art and nothing else.
I haven't actually played it.
I haven't either. A lot of people are saying they love it, though. I just thought it was weird because I remember, like I said this during Extra Life, but I played the demo of that game like 4 years ago, or 3 or 4 years ago or something, and I assumed that it had just come out and nobody cared, you know. And then like all of a sudden everybody was talking about it. I was like, why is everybody talking about this game? It's like, oh, it never actually came out.
I appreciate that this game kind of reverses the armor breaking thing from the like Ghosts and Goblins series back on the enemies. Oh man, I must be in the castle that the giant spider was attacking, because now I can see it through the windows in the background.
Yep.
That kind of stuff is like Konami did that kind of stuff a lot, especially you see that a lot in the Castlevania games, where there'll be like a thing happening in the background and then suddenly you're fighting it or whatever.
Yep. Now, you know, I was going to talk more about the Genesis, just to sort of, since this is our first episode of this. But what I find interesting is that the Genesis was more successful in the U.S. than anywhere else. Like Americans, and like Sega fans are kind of weird, you know. Sega fans get really into being Sega fans. Like even now, there's a lot of people on the internet who just like slag off everything Nintendo does because they're still Sega fans.
Yeah, that stuff was dumb back in 1993, and it's even
right
up now.
It's even dumber now, but it's just really interesting that Sega was able to capture something during that era, largely due to the Sega of America division being given a lot of autonomy during the Genesis era.
Yeah.
And they really, I mean, both the Super NES and the Genesis sold like about 30,000 units in North America. And you know, in a lot of other places, like in Japan, like nobody gives a shit about the Genesis in Japan, you know, because it sold like total garbage. But you know, in the U.S., it's just it did really well, and I think that because of that and because of how things sort of went down for Sega, there's a lot of people in current vintage gaming communities or just who have a history with video games that don't think of the Genesis as having, you know, a really great library, but it really does. And a lot of it is due to Sega's first party stuff that is really fantastic, because for the first really like almost 3 years of the system's life, there were very few third-party publishers, and the ones that were there were not really what you would call like your all-star A-team, besides EA, who were kind of untested at that point. But you know, it wasn't until 92, 92 Konami released 3 games for the Genesis, you know, and 2 of them were like kind of mediocre Super NES, like retreads of things that were on the Super NES.
Which were
Sunset Riders, Ninja Turtles, Hyperstone Heist, and I forgot what the third one was. Lethal Enforcers, maybe? I'll have to look it up.
bananas. Pop them.
In pajamas.
Marching downstairs. Or whatever. I don't remember the... I don't really remember how that song goes.
That's all I know of this. That's literally all I know of the song. What you just said. Let's see. Coffee asked if have you seen the Japanese Sega survey asking which franchise people want to see them bring back? I haven't seen that, but I feel like I need to. I feel like I need to see it. And Mute Key says EA love to toss absolute garbage the Genesis's way, sports titles notwithstanding. I don't. I mean, yes and no. The Strike series is not bad. General Chaos is one of my favorite Genesis games. Haunting, starring Poltergeist, is a really fun and unique Genesis game from EA. The Road Rash series I like a lot. So that may or may not be a sport, I guess. I actually even considered
I guess I've played some
having
Road
Eric
Rash.
play Skitchin, but I thought I'd hold off for like a little bit later before I subject you to Skitchin, because that's a divisive title.
This game really,
says Dark Castle
really
sort of
feels
Sodan.
and embodies what I consider like the Genesis sort of like look and sound, and like the sort of rawness of the synth and the songs, and like it's fast, but definitely is not as detailed as like the Super Nintendo version of this. But I really, really like the way that Sparkster bounces off of stuff and feels kind of almost a little out of control, but because you're invincible during the dash, it sort of negates that. I mean, obviously, that was only stage 1, so I haven't really gotten to the point where this gets difficult, but...
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I was wrong, actually. The two games I mentioned were the only two games they released in 1992 on the Genesis. Sunset Riders, which there is an episode of Same Name, Different Game for anybody who might be watching this and hasn't seen it.
That's a pretty good game. Or at least
it
the
is.
Super Nintendo one is.
The arcade one and the Super Nintendo one are. The Genesis one is the weakest. I mean, it's not a terrible game, but it's definitely the weakest of all the versions. But it actually came out on the Genesis before it came out on the Super Nintendo. So, and Ninja Turtles Hyperstone Heist, which is sort of like a pastiche of Turtles in Time and like the first arcade game, kind of. But yeah, they eventually would go on to release a lot of good stuff for the system. But yeah, Mute Key says Dark Castle, Sword of Sodan is examples of EA titles on Genesis that are bad, and those are bad. Apparently the Sega survey ended this week. Results to be announced on Sunday. So I don't know. I mean, the problem with the problem is that when you ask like, what do you want to see Sega bring back? It's like the Sega of today is not the Sega of 20 years ago, and that's, so it's like, yeah, I mean, I'd like to see him bring back Streets of Rage or Dynamite Cop or, I don't know, like a million things, right? Shinobi, but like, do we know that the Sega of today is going to do right by any of those franchises?
Oh, okay. I see how this works now.
You're behind the waterfall.
Well, I couldn't figure out how I got behind the waterfall, but when you land on those platforms,
they go back and it's just like dithering everywhere with the Genesis. The Genesis had trouble with transparencies, and the Saturn also had trouble with transparencies.
Those look a little fucked up when you're going in and out, but all right, I see where this is going here. Whoa, hey, what's up, smiley guy? I stand way too much on these spikes here.
Mute Key says just give us Panzer Dragoon Saga and we'll call it even.
Never.
Yeah, that's...
You have
You'll
to
be
own
paying
a Saturn,
$200 for that.
I think it's more than that for
$300
for those carts these days.
Well, it was discs, but yeah.
Yeah,
it's really expensive. It's like prohibitively expensive, and the problem is that until recently there wasn't like an easy way to play burn discs on a Saturn.
Yeah.
But apparently there's a recent, you can get like a new firmware flash to like an action replay cartridge, and you'll be able to play straight up bootlegs, just burned discs instead of just imports. But I'm not a huge I'm not that game doesn't especially interest me, especially at the price point.
Yeah, I've tried to emulate it, but that was a while ago.
Yeah.
So also,
Coffee said that he saw a lot of Streets of Rage and Jet Set Radio requests. Jet Set Radio is good too, but like even the sequel to that, I think is kind of underwhelming compared to the original. Jet Set Radio Future is like, it's fine, but I mean it doesn't really do anything the original didn't already do. Let's see. Space Monkey says Sega has canceled so many Streets of Rage and Golden Axe reboots.
yeah.
They should have canceled the last Golden Axe reboot because, oh my god, Golden Axe Beast Rider, what a stinker that was.
That was on 360, right, on the arcade thing.
Was it or was it? I thought that was on like PS2. I think.
All right, I'm swimming, but like he controls like Yoshi does in Super Mario World, which is pretty good. Also, it doesn't appear that there's any kind of air time limit, which...
Oh, no, you're right. It is, it's 360 and PS3.
Yeah.
Those, Golden
I don't think I ever played that, because I don't, honestly... I
didn't play it because it got
Golden
such
Axe,
a negative reaction.
but...
Yeah, also, I mean, let's
I think I played the arcade version of Golden Axe, or was there a Master System version of Golden Axe?
There was. Okay. It's only one. You can only play as Axe Battler, and it's only one player.
I think that might be the version of that game that I played like a little bit of.
Golden Axe is a game that honestly has aged like soft cheese. It's real bad. Like, and the second one is like marginally better, but then the third one is bad. And the only really decent Golden Axe game that I think I would want to play now was the arcade sequel, Revenge of Death Adder. Like, you can play as like a centaur lady, and there's like a dude, like a giant with a dwarf on his back is one of the playable characters and shit like that, and it's just this really weird beat 'em up.
So you can play as the Blaster Master, basically.
From like the 90s. Yeah, who in Bartertown. Yeah.
Yes. Not Blaster Master dude in the Meg.
Right. No, it's Master Blaster in Thunderdome. Yeah.
Yes.
And Mute Key brought up the 3D remake from the Sega Ages collection or whatever, and that's terrible too.
Well,
and Space Monkey says Beast Rider was so bad, a friend of his made him play it, and he won't try that again.
All right, I'm gonna use up this life, and then it's gonna be time to call it an episode.
Okay, and then you're gonna decide if Genesis or
this
Genesisn't.
Game Genesis or Genesisn't any good.
Yeah.
The dumbest fucking name for anything. I wish I didn't try out the level select, but I mean I got through the first level, and I'm going to assume at least semi deep into the second level, which is enough to
formulate an opinion.
Yeah, sure. It's like I understand the mechanics of this game, and I can see the ways in which that they could. Am I supposed to try and thread this needle? There we go. Sort of expand on that. Obviously, whoa. Okay, I guess I was supposed to duck when all those exclamation point signs showed up, but check out this minecart level. Remember those?
Yeah. Hey man, those were still a thing. Like, and I mean, Resident Evil 4 has a minecart level.
Does 5 does? Does 4?
Yeah, 4 definitely does. You remember being Leon in the when you get under the castle, and you're in the minecart, and you have to
I was thinking, you know what I'm talking about in 5, right?
I think
there's like a part where you're like riding a minecart, and like one person is like covering the other as they go to hit switches to change the tracks and stuff.
That's right. Yeah. Yep.
That's what I was thinking of.
That's similar to the one in 4, though, except you're not you're by yourself.
That's a death pit. Okay, that's Rocket Knight Adventures.
So it's Genesis or Genesis?
This game seems Genesis. This game Genesis pretty okay, man. I like it anyway. I would play some more of this. It definitely is the best. I haven't played the second one. Maybe we'll get to that at some point. But this definitely feels the best of the 3 of these that I've spent a significant amount of time with. It's definitely the one with the sort of most limited sort of tool set if you compare it to the modern one or the Super Nintendo one. You don't have quite as wide a range of maneuvers, but just the speed of it and the fact that like the way that you bounce into and off of things feels really, really amazing. And it seems like this game sort of leans into that very heavily as part of the level designs in a way that the Super Nintendo one and the modern one don't. So yeah, this game is dope, man. I don't know. People should play Rocket Knight Adventures. So that's positive first impression. We'll see. I don't know what I'm playing next time. I haven't spun that particular wheel of death. I haven't spun the wheel or made the deal yet. But
spin the wheel, make the deal. It'll be a coal miner's glove match. You against the Sega Genesis.
But yeah, this game, I'd say this game definitely deserves its status as kind of a sleeper classic.
Yeah, for sure.
Very good. All right. Well, if anybody that was hanging out, thanks for hanging out. If you check this out on YouTube, thanks for that too. And I don't know, we'll catch you next time.
We'll be back next week, I guess. I think we're trying to make this a Wednesday. Yeah, we should try. I think we're gonna. This week it's Thursday, obviously, but I think in general we're gonna try to do Wednesdays before the regular stream.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we'll be tweeting about it and everything, and I'm gonna put this on YouTube right away so folks can go ahead and check it out.
Sounds like a good deal.
Missed it. So
yeah, check
and
out
you
that
and
box
Kurt
art.
will be back in about 15 minutes with more something.
Probably closer to an hour, but we'll be playing some Gears 4. We'll be streaming a bunch of that, I think. Rocket Knight Adventures, featuring Sparksters. It says right there on the box art.
Yep.
Because you definitely knew who Sparkster was in 1993, and that would influence your purchasing decisions for sure. All right. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.